I've taken about as long to release a video as it's taken the delicious last course to release.
It's a delicious last course. Oh, the delicious last course. One can eat their fill and still stay until the delicious last course.
I know I'm putting this video out super late, but I finally found the time to play through the Cuphead DLC, ingeniously titled The Delicious Last Course, and I wanted to give my thoughts about it. I played the PC version on Steam. I originally played Cuphead all the way back when it came out in 2017. It was one of my favorite games from that year. As I always say, I absolutely love hand-drawn graphics in games, and Cuphead has some of the very best hand-drawn animations out there. I also have a love and appreciation for 1930s era cartoons made by studios like Flesher and Disney, so the 30s-esque art style for the game was just so cool to me. And it was expertly pulled off, featuring gorgeous animations, creative character designs, and nice throwbacks and Easter eggs to cartoons from that time period. The gameplay was great too. It was mainly a boss rush style game, with the majority of levels being multi-phase boss fights. Most of these bosses are staged as platformers, but some see Cuphead flying an airplane in something that resembles more of a shoot 'em up. There were these small handful of platforming levels and challenge levels. These platforming levels are really fun and not only test your run and gun skills, but your platforming abilities too. The game was notoriously difficult. You were limited to just a few hit points. You couldn't heal mid-fight. Bosses required a lot of skill to overcome. And while there was a two-player mode, it didn't necessarily make the game easier, as the boss's health is scaled to balance the second player. All in all, it was fantastically made, and it was a very impressive indie title. Shortly after the game's release, the DLC was announced, and nearly 5 years later, we are finally here with the delicious last course. 5 years was an incredibly long time to wait for a DLC in my opinion, but it's refreshing knowing that the DLC wasn't rushed, the devs weren't subjected to crunch, and it is a well-made, complete DLC at release. And of course, we have to remember that this game features hand-drawn animations and graphics. The amount of time needed to draw all of this, especially with how much goes on the screen, with all of the colors and background animations, that alone must have taken forever, not even getting into the game design aspect. So it completely makes sense to me that this game would have taken this long. That said, I didn't play the game since it came out nearly 5 years ago, so it did take me a while to get back into the swing of things. I was definitely rusty, and I wasn't ready for the immediate challenge that the Delicious Last Course provides. So what does the Delicious Last Course provide? The DLC adds 7 new boss levels, 5 new challenge bosses in a stage called the King's Leap, 3 new weapons, 3 new charms, and an entirely new playable character, Miss Chalice. All in total, it took me probably around 6 or 7-ish hours to complete, giving time for dying to a handful of bosses and experimenting with the new weapons and charms. It's not super long, but I was satisfied with the length and the amount of content given. The core boss level of the DLC doesn't shake up the formula all that much. They're still multi-phase, they're still quite challenging, they still require you to learn move patterns and animation cues, they still fire off the pink attacks that you can parry. That said, I found every boss wonderfully designed, both in their artistic design and in their functionality as a game boss. Some of my favorites were this big band made up of mobster bugs. I especially liked the music change during the fight to match what the bugs were doing on screen. There was this ice monster cult. I really liked the look of these cultists. This whole part reminded me of the cartoon Bimbo's Initiation.
Wanna be a member? Wanna be a member?
No.
I liked when this giant ripped off his beard and it became the snowy ground on the mountain. It fits perfectly with the surreal nature of the cartoons from the 30s that Cuphead is so inspired by. I also really liked the dogfight boss. It was really fun, and I liked the dogfight pun, and just how much they committed to the dog motif in the boss's moveset. My favorite boss in this DLC, though, comes from the secret boss, which I will discuss a little later with a spoiler warning. The King's Leap challenges do shake up the formula a bit, though. These are bosses that can only be defeated by parrying. You can't shoot or use your special abilities or your charms. It really forces you to learn enemy attacks that much more, and be aware of where they are on the screen, and time your parries right to not get hit. I liked most of these. I didn't really like the Knight one. He takes so many hits, and you need to wait for him to use a move that leaves him vulnerable. It's just a long, kind of boring fight that doesn't fit my more aggressive playstyle very well. My favorite of these was the Bishop. I found his design great, and I liked how between his giant head bouncing around and the bells flying around and needing to blow out these candles, it really forced you to be mobile. There is a lot going on screen at pretty much all times. There are enemies moving around, bullets flying everywhere, things going on in the background, boss animations, your bullets and characters are moving around. It's very easy to get lost in the action, and it takes a while to kind of see the forest through the trees, as it were. I can see how some people might be overwhelmed or overloaded by the visual explosion happening pretty much at all times, and it's very easy to lose yourself and take hits because you hyper-focus on one projectile to avoid and completely miss another. But you definitely do get used to it and can start compartmentalizing the visuals to play smarter and more successfully. For all these bosses, the core bosses and the King's Leap boss, it feels so good when you get in a groove. When the fight finally clicks after a handful of attempts and you know the boss's moves and you're jumping and dashing all over the place, timing your parries right, it provides a satisfying, fluid experience. On the flip side, I found that when that groove faltered, I would get hit, and I would get hit hard, and just keep flubbing and taking damage. This is especially the case when you'd make it to the next phase of the boss, and the attacks would change and you weren't ready for it. But that's what makes this game so fun, learning the new attack patterns and getting better and better against the boss. Every time I died, I knew it was my fault. I thought every boss was fairly designed and balanced. Nothing felt cheap or unfair, and I knew where I messed up. It creates an addictive gameplay loop, akin to something like Hotline Miami, where you're having so much fun playing the game, and you can see yourself improving, that you don't really feel that frustrated dying over and over and over. This sensation isn't exclusive to the DLC. I felt that way about the original game too, but it definitely carries over into the DLC. A quick overview of the weapons and charms. They're good. The 3 new shots include the Crack Shot, which breaks off from where you shoot it and redirects to hit an enemy, the Converge, a widespread shot that can be narrowed down by aiming, and the Twist Up, a new shot that curves upwards. And of course, they all have new special abilities attached to them. I found the Crack Shot to be my favorite, and it became my new main weapon overall. I generally like the shots that allow me to hold down fire and focus on dodging. I found the weapon's redirection feature extremely useful. The 3 new charms include the Heart Ring, which allows you to regenerate health with successful parries on the 1st, 3rd, and 6th parries, essentially giving you 3 extra hit points if you can successfully parry. The Broken Relic, which has a mysterious in-game use, and the Astral Cookie, which lets you play as Miss Chalice. I really liked the inclusion of Miss Chalice. She isn't just a skin for Cuphead and Mugman, like I initially thought she'd be, but she mixes up the mechanics in a fun way. Miss Chalice doesn't execute parries by jumping. She parries by dashing. She also has a dodge roll. She can double jump. She starts with 4 hit points instead of just 3. And she has unique 3rd tier special abilities that Cuphead and Mugman don't have. Like I already said, I really liked her inclusion. Miss Chalice playing differently, mechanically, not only adds nice gameplay variation, but also gave me a way to mix up my own playstyle if I found like I was stuck on a particular boss for a period of time. And I did find some bosses better suited for Miss Chalice's playstyle. Certain enemies were easier to dodge with the roll instead of needing to jump over them. The double jump was very useful, and her 3rd tier special number 3 ability was incredibly powerful and fun to use. But she isn't better in every way. There is a trade-off that you cannot use charms while playing as Miss Chalice. So if there was another charm that you liked, for me, I fell in love with the Heart Ring in the DLC. You can't use it while playing as Miss Chalice, which can make certain bosses harder. You can't heal or get these special gauge buffs or other things that other charms provide. I found myself trading off between her and Cuphead through the entirety of my playthrough of the Delicious Last Course because I found her so fun to play, and it allowed me to approach bosses in different ways. Part of me was hoping that her inclusion would allow for the addition of a 3rd player for multiplayer instead of just 2, but this isn't the case. I know the game was designed to simply be 2-player, and changing that core, especially in terms of boss balancing to fit a 3rd player, just isn't realistic, but it would have been cool. There is a story reason explaining why all 3 characters aren't fighting at the same time. If you played the base game, you'd know that Miss Chalice is dead, and her ghost gives you the Mausoleum challenges. The Spectral Cookie allows her to trade places with either Mugman or Cuphead, so essentially she regains her life at the cost of one of them becoming a ghost. I'm sure there's a mod to allow for 3 players though, so maybe I'll just look into that for fun. So let's discuss the secret boss I mentioned earlier. So spoiler warning, if you don't want the hub world riddle or the secret boss spoiled for you, jump to the next section. Alright, to get to the secret boss you need the broken relic. At first, its use is completely unknown, but it allows you to interact with these tombstones. Near the tombstones is a ghost that will give you a hint as to how to use them. You need to talk to these three guys, who give you riddles. The answers to their riddles tell you which tombstones to press in which order. The riddles given are randomly generated for each playthrough, which is pretty cool because it makes it that much harder to look up a solution online. Anyways, you are given the correct combination and the center tombstone lights up, revealing a hidden boss, a demon and an angel. I loved this boss fight. It was incredibly well designed. The music is creepy and the intro voice is all distorted. Both the angel and demon fire projectiles at you, but the angels will simply pass through you without damaging you, while the demons hurt you. Their positions are swapped depending on which direction you are facing. The demon will always face the way that you are looking, so you need to use your placement to strategically plan projectile avoidance. You can switch the way you are facing to toggle projectiles to dodge, but if you aren't paying attention, you could end up turning around and letting a projectile materialize right into you. There's also this cloud platform in the center, and occasionally spawning lightning strikes that damage you as well, so there's a lot to pay attention to. It's great. This is one boss where I found Miss Chalice to be really handy, because you can stay in one place, jumping or ducking to avoid the demon's attacks, and when the lightning strike came, you could roll through it to avoid it, without needing to turn around. Where most bosses require you to stay constantly on your toes, moving all around, this boss benefits from controlled, stable movements, keeping track of everything going on around you. So that's it for the brief spoiler section. My biggest complaint about the DLC is that there aren't any new platforming run-and-gun levels. I really liked those and wanted to see a couple more, but every level in the Delicious Last Course is a boss level. Even one run-and-gun level would have been really appreciated. Maybe even one that utilized Miss Chalice's unique roll ability, though I know that would have made co-op difficult. All in all, I found the Delicious Last Course to be well worth the wait. It was incredibly fun and featured some really creatively designed bosses, incredible animations, and above all, challenging and fun gameplay. I really liked the new additions, especially the gameplay variation that Miss Chalice offers. It's definitely a must-play if you enjoyed the core Cuphead experience. I'm excited that Cuphead is finally getting a physical release, with the DLC included. I will definitely be double-dipping to get this game on Switch once that's released. So yeah, definitely recommend Cuphead: The Delicious Last Course. Go play it for yourself.